morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome to Global Atheist News Roundup, dateline 20th of May 2023. This week's headlines. The Pope tells Zelensky he is praying for peace. Former Archbishop of York is told to step down from the church. Afrikaans Pastor Rooies Strauss has been exorcising the demon of autism. Rebekah Vardy says she was abused during her Jehovah's Witness childhood. The US religious attendance is shrinking, but those who remain are happy. The US State Department reports on threats and triumphs in religious freedom worldwide. An ancient Hebrew Bible was purchased for $38.1 million for display in a Jewish museum. Dr. Kenneth Elliott has been released after being kidnapped in West Africa 7 years ago. In a private meeting in the Vatican, Pope Francis has told Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky that he is constantly praying for peace. In a statement last Saturday, the Holy See said Pope Francis and President Zelensky discussed the humanitarian and political situation in Ukraine caused by the ongoing war. The Argentine pontiff and President Zelensky both agreed on the need to continue humanitarian efforts to support the population. The statement added, "The Pope has assured his constant prayer and continuous invocation to the Lord for peace since last February, when Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered the full-scale invasion." The former Archbishop of York, John Sentamu, has been forced to step down from his Church of England role after a review into how he handled a child sex abuse allegation. Lord Sentamu has already rejected the report's findings, which said he failed to act on a claim made by victim Mr. Innocent. He has been an honorary assistant bishop in the Diocese of Newcastle recently, but the Bishop of Newcastle has asked him to step back from active ministry until both the findings and his response can be explored further. The Church has apologised to retired vicar Matthew Innocent, who was 16 when he was abused in the 1980s, and he's waived his legal right to anonymity. His abuser, the Reverend Trevor Devamanicum, killed himself before he was due to appear in court. In 2013, Mr. Innocent told senior clergy about the abuse, including Lord Sentamu, who was then Archbishop of York. Devamanicum was charged with 6 serious sexual offences in May 2017, but he was found dead the day before he was due to appear in court at court in Bradford. Politicians and priests united to challenge Church of England privileges at a National Secular Society event in Parliament on Thursday. 4 speakers joined the NSS discussion on the future of church and state to argue why separation between the two would benefit both the UK state and the church itself. The event at the Houses of Parliament was held in the wake of King Charles's Anglican coronation earlier this month, which shone a spotlight on the intimate relationship between church and state in the UK. The church's established status has also come under increased scrutiny over its continued discrimination against LGBT people and women in general, and its recent safeguarding scandals. The four speakers, Tommy Sheppard MP, Jane Ozanne, Dr. Martin Percy, and Polly Toynbee, called for an end to the C of E's many privileges, including automatic seats for its bishops in the House of Lords and Christian prayers imposed in Parliament and schools. We now go to South Africa for a report from our correspondent, Tercia du Plessis.
Good evening. In South Africa, Rooies Strauss, Rooies means the red one in Afrikaans, is an Afrikaans-speaking pastor and evangelist. He has at least 2 YouTube channels with in excess of 2,500 subscribers each and a large following on social media. Pastor Strauss, whose ministry is based on his crocodile farm close to Groblershoop in the Northern Cape Province, is well known for his public exorcisms to drive the demons of addiction, homosexuality, and now also autism out of people. This most recent exorcism was widely publicized in the South African press for Pastor Strauss's claim that autism is not a mental condition but an affliction caused by demon possession. Several individuals and advocacy groups have lodged complaints against Strauss with the South African Human Rights Commission. We will try to follow up on whether or not any action will be taken against Pastor Strauss and his mission, School of Fire. At the time of reporting, Pastor Strauss was on a missionary outreach to deliver Bibles to the war-afflicted citizens of Ukraine and has not commented on the furor caused by his statements. Strauss is a former member of the South African Police Force and claims to have investigated several occult crimes while serving as a law enforcement officer. Thank you, John. Back to the studio.
Thank you, Tercia. Media personality Rebekah Vardy, who grew up as a Jehovah's Witness, has alleged that she was sexually abused between the ages of 11 and 15. As part of a new Channel 4 documentary, she claimed the alleged abuse was covered up by elders, senior male leaders within the religious group. In a statement, Jehovah's Witnesses said they lacked the information to comment on individual cases. Jehovah's Witnesses are a Christian-based religious movement with about 8.5 million followers worldwide, which believes the destruction of the world is imminent. Mrs. Vardy, who grew up as a Jehovah's Witness, says she hopes that by speaking about her experiences, she will be able to show others that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Speaking to ITV's Good Morning Britain about the forthcoming documentary called The Jehovah's Witnesses and Me, Ms. Vardy said she was scared of the consequences of speaking about sexual abuse due to the fear of bringing shame onto the family. I found this part of my life a bit of an obstacle, but I wanted to use this obstacle to create an opportunity to help other people that have been in similar situations, and just hopefully to show that there's light at the end of the tunnel, she told the programme. I think I realised that I've probably only just scratched the surface. I think my story isn't unique, and there's going to be plenty of others, as have already come out, who will continue to come out. A shrinking number of Americans, 16%, say religion is the most important thing in their lives. That's down from 20% in 2013. And nearly 3 in 10 say religion is not important to them at all. That's up from 19% 10 years ago. Those are among the findings in a new survey by the Public Religion Research Institute on religion and congregations that was fielded in 2022 and published on Tuesday. The survey of 5,872 American adults finds that 57% seldom or never attend religious services, That's compared to 45% in 2019. And some of those that do are restless. The survey finds that 24% of Americans now belong to a religious congregation other than the one they grew up in. That's up from 16% in 2021. But among those who remain churchgoers, there's a happier story. Most churchgoers across Christian traditions have attended their current church for more than 10 years, revealing remarkable stability. And an overwhelming number of regular attenders say they're optimistic about the future of their congregation, and a whopping 89% say they are proud to be associated with their church. What struck me about the findings is this paradox, said Melissa Deckman, CEO of PRRI. We see continued declines in the role of religion, but for those who attend regularly, they seem pretty happy and satisfied, even proud of their congregations. Americans who attend church at least a few times a year are slightly more likely than those who seldom or never attend church to be civically or politically active. The survey shows they are more likely to have contacted a government official, served on a committee, or volunteered for a political campaign. Higher levels of civic engagement are particularly strong for Black and Hispanic churchgoers. US State Department officials continued to point to religious freedom atrocities in Russia, China, and Afghanistan as they released their annual report on threats to religious liberties across the globe. Far too many governments continue to freely target faith community members within their borders, said Rashad Hussain, Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom, at an event with Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Monday, marking the release of the 2022 International Religious Freedom Report. A second theme and trend the report highlights is the increase of government restrictions on access to holy sites and places of worship. The report, which assesses conditions in 199 countries, also looks at policies and laws, including those about blasphemy and apostasy, that criminalize religious expression and extend discrimination against religious minorities and others who differ from rules of an accepted theology. The report describes growing bigotry at the societal level in many places around the world, said Hussain, who noted the ongoing and deeply disturbing proliferation of anti-Semitism, anti-Muslim hatred, and xenophobia that targets religious and non-religious communities. The State Department leaders described how religious freedoms are being truncated and trampled upon, but also noted the progress for religious rights that has occurred in some countries. Belgium formally recognized its Buddhist minority, which entitles Buddhist religious organizations to teach their faith in state schools and eventually to apply for federal funding to do so, Blinken said in his remarks. And lawmakers in Brazil codified religious freedom guarantees for Afro-Brazilian indigenous communities at the municipal and state levels across the country. They also passed legislation making it a crime to carry out discriminatory acts against any religious practices. The Codex Sassoon, a late 9th or early 10th century book, Sotheby's has dubbed the earliest, most complete copy of the Hebrew Bible, was sold for $38.1 million on Wednesday to American Friends of the ANU Museum of the Jewish People. It will become part of the museum's core exhibition and permanent collection in Tel Aviv, Israel, according to Sotheby's. The purchase of the Codex Sassoon was made possible through a donation by Alfred H. Moses, a former US ambassador to Romania, and his family. The Hebrew Bible is the most influential book in history and constitutes the bedrock of Western civilization. I rejoice in knowing that it belongs to the Jewish people. It was my mission, realizing the historic significance of Codex Sassoon, to see that it resides in a place with global access to all people, Moses said in a press release. In my heart and mind, that place was the land of Israel, the cradle of Judaism, where the Hebrew Bible originated. A commenter said, the carbon dating was really important for them because they had initially thought to offer it for a bit less. But when the carbon dating came back, plausibly around 900 CE, which would make it as early as, or even a little earlier than the Aleppo Codex, the value went up. An elderly Australian doctor who had been held captive after being kidnapped in Burkina Faso has been released more than 7 years later. Kenneth Elliott, now aged 88, was abducted with his wife Jocelyn in January 2016, close to the Niger border, by a group believed to have links to Al-Qaeda. Jocelyn was released after about 3 weeks. Dr. Elliott is understood to be well when he flew into Perth last night. No ransom was paid by the Australian government or by Dr. Elliott's family. I'm very pleased to advise that Dr. Ken Elliott, who has been held hostage in Western Africa for 7 years, has been reunited in Australia with his family, said Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong. Our guest for the live Free Thought Hour show today is A.T. Bollins, who has written a book on panpsychism. He's a great guest who's been on the show before. We want to get to the bottom of consciousness. And don't forget to watch Views on the News, our panel show about this very news. This has been Global Atheist News. The GAN team will be back next week. Thanks for watching.